You know what? Let's just start. I do recognize a lot of the names that are up there, but let's give a little background of who we are and how we got started. I usually start. So Jackie, why don't you start off this time?
I could do that. I'm not sure how to start. I'm a little like you today, Joe. I'm a little off, but that's just how that is.
Yep.
It's been a long day, but yeah, I'm Jackie, and I started using AutoHotkey. I can't remember, maybe 4 years ago. I think it's about amounting to that now, and I have a. I can't remember the English wording for it, but it's a drafter's degree from a university here in Denmark, and I've usually made technical drawings and stuff like that, but some years ago I started using AutoHotkey to help me in my daily work, and yeah, I've just extended my knowledge ever since, and don't feel like I have a day where I don't use it. But,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and so we started talking, I guess, like maybe 2 years ago now, having pretty regular chats on Hangouts, and so, like Jackie, I don't have a background in programming either, and I've been using AutoHotkey I think like 8 years, but I stuck with mostly hot strings and then hotkeys for the first, I'd say, like 4 years. And then I started learning object-oriented stuff, particularly around web scraping, and that just blew my mind. For so long, I thought I was which I was. I was incredibly efficient at writing my syntax using hot strings. But when I started using COM and using object-oriented stuff, it was night and day. And so the last 4 years, I've been learning more and more about object-oriented coding. And then, so Jackie and I, because he's way ahead of me as far as using object-oriented stuff, and so I realized he was actually answering. He's Black Holy Man on the forum, AutoHotkey forum, and so he would often be the person that would be answering my questions. And then I noticed he had a website, jszzapp.com, and so I wrote him a note and said thank you, and then we just started talking, and we both love saving time. It isn't necessarily I don't think any of us like to code, right? It's not that.
No, you can. Of course, it's a great tool to be able to do it, but I'm not because I'm sitting there and thinking I need to go and code something. No, it is totally the working through a task by automating it. It gives me a lot of pleasure. I use more time on actually automating it that sometimes I could probably just have worked through it. But to me,
you could have that one time, right? But then you have to go do it again in a month, or you have other ones. You're like, you know what? I can borrow that code and I can tweak it. And it's rarely ever time where you waste it, right? Because also you learn from it.
Yeah, but it's always up to kind of discussion or however you want to put it. That some people, they just don't believe that that you need to automate stuff. You could do it.
Close to home right now for me.
Yeah, I heard that when I said it, but it is true that a lot of people either don't understand how quickly you can automate something, and I must say that to challenge myself, as I have no programming background or anything, I might do stuff with AutoHotkey that is totally unneeded, or where another programming language or tool might have been better suited.
Sure. Yeah.
But I know AutoHotkey, and that's
right.
That's what I use.
So shall we? We got a couple minutes after we started, because this first couple minutes is really chit chat anyway, as far as explaining what the plan is.
Yeah, we could get started.
Okay.
It's I don't see. We could give people an unlimited amount of minutes to come in, but
right.
Yeah.
So as we mentioned, and if you have questions and want to reach out to us, here's both of our email addresses and of course our websites. If you have want to check out what's there for I have a lot of videos, and Jackie has more tutorial type things. So just because we never know how many people are going to join, and you can just imagine if it looks like right now we have 15 people in total. If we all tried to talk at the same time, even with Jackie and I, we're talking over each other. So that's why you're muted. It isn't because we think we're it, right? It's just simplicity of not having to talk over each other. But there is in the chat and somewhere else, there's a place where you can raise your hand or you can post a question in the chat, and hopefully one of us will see it, and we can restate it for now. And then after the first like 40 minutes or so, maybe an hour, when we're done with what we have built for the webinar, then we'll unmute it, and whoever wants to unmute themselves, they can, and we can converse back and forth that way. It's just an easier process. As I mentioned, there's a very short survey. I'm going to put it there one more time because people who show up later don't see it. And of course, I have a hotkey for that, or a hot string, but so that goes in there. Obviously, this is the thing. Like I spent over, I'd say, 3 years using AutoHotkey, scourging the forum, looking at it, learning from it, but I never asked a question online. And it was always because I was afraid somebody else would realize like I'm an idiot, right? And I don't know what I'm doing. Of course, they still think that. But the thing here is like we all know, you realize later that like we're all at different places. We all started at one place. So, if you have questions, which I think in our forum compared to the other forums I've seen, the people are some of the nicest and most helpful people, and they understand we're all learning. So just when if you're chatting on the side, just try to be respectful and remember, either at one point in your life you were where the other people were. So that's that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're into getting going here.
Yeah. Calm. One of the most used terms, I think, on the forum. I'm not sure, but I've heard that it is so many times that I'm beginning to believe that it is one of the most used terms on the forum. It might be, and I myself am inclined to kind of push that on even the newest people, because that's what I like to use myself. So when I help someone with whatever they're doing with Excel, and they are maybe sending keystrokes and switching windows and whatnot with WinActivate and whatever different types of stuff they're using, when I go in and try to help them by rewriting what they're doing or writing something from scratch, I kind of often look to calm immediately if I know that the program supports it.
I was going to chime in there in that it isn't that quote unquote one is right and one is wrong, right? Sending keystrokes still, especially depending on how complex it is. Sometimes it works just fine and it's simple, but when it comes to reliability, more often than not, using COM type of object to access something, even though it adds complexity to it, man, it's so much more reliable, and the functionality, and easier once you understand it, easier to use.
I must say that the reliability, that's why you should use it, and then the other stuff that comes with it. I feel that, let's say, the dot syntax that's used a lot with COM kind of feels like it's just telling you so much with so little, because you have these indicators of where you are, what object you're doing it with, and what method you're using, and all of that stuff. Whereas using AutoHotkey's commands, as an example, you have a single word and you have some parameters that you pass to it, but you don't actually know what you are working with or where. It's all done behind the scenes, so to speak. So where COM seems a little bit more like hands-on, just a little bit, not truly, because it's still just wrapped functions for us, but still.
Yeah, in So here, I went through and I grabbed a bunch from the forum. We'll share this deck later, by the way. I grabbed a bunch of the links to various things that have been mentioned in the forum about different COM objects. And of course, today we're going to really talk about Excel a lot. But we wanted to get an idea of, like, you know, when I think of COM, I think of it as like the backbone. It's a backbone that is built into a lot of programs. Often, I mean, almost. I'm not going to say every Microsoft program, but a lot of them are, right? They have it in there. So if it's a Microsoft program, often there's a COM object you can connect to it and manipulate with AutoHotkey via COM. But other ones, like, so I use SPSS, which is, I think I'm probably the, you know, maybe there's one other person on the planet that uses AutoHotkey with SPSS, but it actually has COM built into it, and I can programmatically interact with SPSS, which is a statistical tool. And I'm sure there are just hundreds and thousands of other programs that have that functionality, you know, built into it. You just got to do some searching, right? And then when you find access to it, it can give you a great. Now there are other ways, if it doesn't have COM, that like Windows messages and other things that you can still kind of programmatically send messages to that program. But COM for me is a great easy one that has, and also, which is what Jackie mentioned earlier, there's a ton of documentation on the AutoHotkey forum around at least the biggies like Excel, Outlook, Internet Explorer. I see some with Word, in a little bit in PowerPoint, but not a lot. But a lot of the other stuff there is as well.
Yeah, it also, the reason there is so much with, let's say, Excel is that Excel is a hub for data. It is simply, whereas PowerPoint, that is maybe not a place where you need to grab data or put very often. Right. So that narrows down to what I said earlier, that most of the time what you use AutoHotkey for is taking or putting data from somewhere else, using COM as a middleman or whatever you'd call it. So, and that's why I don't think we see much PowerPoint stuff going on.
And the other two, I don't want to get into them, but I want to at least bring them up, is the when HTTP request, that because there's so many web services now that are, you know, APIs that you can interact with, that basically you can run queries on their servers and return, you know, you build a query and send it to them and they'll return stuff to you. It's amazing what's possible there. And then also with the with ADO, even though I haven't done that much, but if you really do use a lot of SQL, it's pretty awesome that you can run SQL queries through it on data sources that you have.
Absolutely right.
All right, let's get on to the next one.
Yeah.
So
why use COM? I think we've already hit some of these, but maybe just why you should use COM. That's reliability, and maybe also a bit of readability. So
that's a good point.
Yeah, when you come back to it, it gives you a lot of structure to your code.
Yeah, and it's slightly different, but stability, right? Because as I mentioned to you earlier, right, Excel, I used to have a thing that I could manipulate really easily with their graphs. Then they changed how the key, you know, how they build the stuff, and you're setting keystrokes that no longer are the same. So especially like web pages, right? So if you can do it programmatically, it's just often more stable in the long run to use COM. This next one, and this one, let's we'll demonstrate this in real life during one of these exercises, right? Oh, and actually that's what I was going to go like this. And this is my little screen clipping thing. And then Jackie is going to, I think we're going to attempt, which we tried last time, but I think this time it seemed to be working better. I am going to pass him control of my computer, and he's going to delete my hard drive. No. he's going to start doing some demonstrations here. By the way, I saved this already, Jackie, in the folder, so you're all good to go there.
Yeah, I'm just kind of figuring out here where all of my stuff is, and I found out that going full screen, my keys actually didn't go to your machine.
That's weird.
Yeah, it was, but still. So I kind of like calling my Excel object OXL, and it's a naming scheme that I've seen a lot of on the forum, and it makes a lot of sense to me. Whereas, as an example, Excel, which is used a lot.
Mhm.
It says the same thing, but to me, the other one, it's an object that holds Excel.
Yeah, the other thing though is I actually had this. I saw someone post about it, but when you write the Excel the way you did, that second letter looks like a 1.
Yeah.
And it's easy to mistake. And so I use the letters XL, but I capitalize them, which avoids that issue. But yeah, fair enough.
And I'd say that depending on whatever you need to do, some people use a lot of time on trying to save keystrokes when writing code, and more often than not, I'm not in that big of a hurry or writing that much code that the actual number of keystrokes that I make would boil down to having an effect.
Yeah. So Jackie, right now, I'm going to talk a little while you're typing just to make it a little easier for you. In Excel, right, when you want it, you have basically, there's 2 things you're going to want to do, and I think you have a spelling issue.
Yeah, I might have.
You want to either create a new version of Excel, a new object, right, or you want to connect to an existing one.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's demonstrating right here to go ahead and create a new Excel object and store it in that see, I thought you were in love with Excel. You're like, oh, Excel.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Again, sorry for my slowness, I might say. I really am not where I should be on this. It's a little late, and whatever needs to be done. Let's say here, this line here tells Excel to become visible. And that's needed because for some reason, or I don't know if it's true for every Excel object, but at least it could be, is that they start up invisible. When you just use the COM object to create the window, they come up invisible. So for the most part, you need to set the value of the visibility state to true to make sure that you can see it. This comes in handy at a later stage where if you want to do stuff in the background and don't see it, you wouldn't need to actually set this to anything because it would be invisible anyway. So it's nice to have it there, but when debugging, it's a good idea to keep that line in there. For some reason, I don't know why I lost connection.
I might have. Let me pass it back. Yeah, you should still have it.
Yeah,
I just saw you move it. Try to get. There you go. It's going now.
Okay. I don't know.
Maybe
it's after you interacting with it that I need to re-engage.
It is, yeah. But I just joined into my laptop, so I was going to reply in the chat, and so anyway, I messed you up. I'm sorry. I will my laptop for that though. Can you have it though? You should be able to.
I have it now.
Okay,
no problem.
So this is Jackie's point. Let me follow up on that real quickly. When you have a large like Excel AutoHotkey thing where you're updating the screen a lot, that's where I love to turn off either the screen update or just not make it visible and do all the hard work and then make it visible later. And man, it's amazing the speed difference. I was very surprised.
Yeah, true. There is luckily a good amount of stuff you can do to speed it up even more than you do initially. So I'm happy that simply just turning off visibility does so much for the speed that that's often all that's needed. So yeah, absolutely. But this is actually what's needed for the first line of our let's build some code, create a new Excel object. That's actually what we have there, and we could easily make that visible. I don't believe you have Excel open right now, Joe.
No, I do not.
Exactly. I was sure that I had typed wrong. again, English is not my native language, and for some reason I can't simply get that wrong. Could I get you to spell that out, Joe?
Sure. Appellation. There we go. That should be right. I hope.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
My spelling is horrible.
Should be easy enough. So that should have been all that was needed, but I can't see
it opened. It's on the taskbar on your left there.
Oh, it's there. Yeah.
There you go. Yep.
I'm just used to seeing it at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was there, and it worked as we could have expected. Mm-hmm. So that was us. And if we wanted instead to, let's say, oh, you built that in Excel? No, that's the name. Fair enough. Yeah. Like so. So if I looked somewhere, let me just say, I can't remember. No, that was print. That's not what I was going for. What are you hearing, Joe?
You did some sort of an error because my thing says inconceivable from the
fair enough.
Right.
It's the Danish shortcut that's not working for you. I was trying to get the Runbar open, but I can probably use this instead. So here, if we have some kind of Excel already open, like this one, let me just make that a little smaller. We could also connect to this one. It could be anything. Do you have something you don't want to share here, Joe?
I don't know. No, it's fine.
So fair enough. I would take this one. It has something in it at least, right? I just picked one. So whatever, this is an item and this is a bit. I'm just, as you can see here, and I'm the winner, right? So now we have an Excel object here, sheet and stuff, and we want to connect to that. And the most easy or the simplest way to do that would be to switch from the COM object create function here to instead using the COM object active, like so. This also has some limitations, but for our demonstration here, this is the simplest way of doing it. So this would now give us access to the last registered Excel window. So if we wanted to, let's say, get text from some cells, that might be a good example to go for. We'd go Excel, we'd say arrange, and I didn't actually look at your sheet, but my guess is that it was in A3. I put in something.
I don't know, but let me type for 1 second, all right? Just because this will be worth our. I'm gonna shrink this up here and move this guy down, and now you can have both going. There you go.
Yeah, fair enough. But I'd say A3, so that's actually this one here. So if I wanted to get the text of that, okay, I'm getting errors. Text of that, like so. This right now is just getting it. It's not putting it anywhere and it's not showing it to us. But if we wanted to, let's say, show it, which would be kind of weird, but let's say we want a variable that's called text to hold the text of cell A3. And we could use a message box to show it. This is just to show both store it somewhere and to show it. This is now, I'm forcing an expression with this sign here. So let's try and test that out. See if we don't get a message box with item in it. Is it just me or, oh, there, needed to click it twice. So there you have item. And if I wanted to show any other ones, or let's say I wanted to have the one in D3 instead, I could do that. I could either change this to D3, or I could make a new line, store it in another variable, or however I wish to do it. So that would be
So I'm curious because I actually learned something here because I always use .value instead of text. If it's a number, will the text deal with truncating the digits? Because I know when it's a number,
Yeah.
it returns back, like 20 digits.
Yeah, exactly. That's how, that's the numbering. Yeah, I can't remember the wording right now, but it will, if we, let's say we have a 1 and 0.3 here instead, and we change this back to A3. You can see here it won't give you all of those excess. So because Excel now knows that this is a number, it won't give you the text.
Yeah.
So here you would use, let's say, value as an example, even though whatever we have is called text. Is it me or is something weird?
No, I thought
I'm in edit mode down here.
Oh yeah. So that's another great thing to point out. You get a really weird error message when you are in a cell. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I always have to round it after I get a digit. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. Normally you can, but of course this would return a string to you,
right?
Which again might have an impact on what you're doing with it, because AutoHotkey is helping you a lot with just if this holds a number, you can do math on it where other languages might not allow you to do that. And if you're passing this value to something else that has to do with COM, they might need to get it as a variable that holds a number and not a variable that holds a string. So it's always worth keeping in mind how you do stuff, but it is a simple way of returning a number without excess O's.
And while you're on that, why don't you show them how you can change the value in the cell?
Yeah, we can do that as well. Do we want? I'll just do this with the value just to show it with the extra zeros there.
Right. Yeah.
That's because AutoHotkey is set up to allow 6 points after. The 6 digits after the comma. So that could be changed as well with another AutoHotkey function if you wanted to. But that's kind of, I'd say that's the hard way of doing it, because what you are after most of the time is just to not get the extra zeros.
Yeah.
Whereas if you actually use the built-in way of setting the number format in AutoHotkey, it would start rounding on it if you had something in here that was longer. And let's say we had in here 1.364 or 54 or whatever, and we had said that we only wanted to have 2 digits after, then it would actually round this number for us, which might not be what we wanted.
Right.
But let's say that we wanted to set this instead. We would remove this here, and we wanted to set the value down here instead to, let's say, 1.456. That's a little different from the other one. Now, if I simply save this and run it, you will get an error because most of the time I'm in edit mode down here.
Yeah.
So let's try that again. So there, you actually change the value of that cell. And that's why I talked about this COM object active being the easiest way of doing it, but having a few limitations. And one of those is if you're in edit mode, it won't allow you to do stuff.
Yeah. Even in some of the other ways, that when you're in a cell, it will not connect.
Yeah, exactly. And it will limit you immediately. It won't allow you to do anything with Excel. So you cannot program yourself out of edit mode using the COM object, because you won't be allowed to actually make any types of calls to it. So it's kind of limiting. So if you wanted to make sure you got out of this, you might need to send a keystroke to the window to kind of break out of edit mode beforehand. Or you could use one of the more involved methods of connecting to Excel, but I don't think we are there right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we set text, and we could of course also set the text and not a value, and the text could also be a number, but the difference would most likely be that Excel would no longer treat it as a number. Am I still in edit mode down here? I am. That's amazing that I'm doing that. So here it's now saying it's unable to set text property of the range class, which is kind of weird if you don't know why it's doing that. Let's now try and set a string to the same thing.
So you got an asterisk in there.
Oh, there. Yeah, I did. I'm not sure if that actually matters for the error at hand. See here?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we instead change this down here to, let's say, string, like so, click here, and we now set the text. You ain't allowed to actually set the text of this range because it's not a string cell. So you can't set the actual text of it.
Oh, okay.
You can set the value to text, and that would change the actual property of the cell. So that's allowed, but not the text when it's not a text cell. Instead, if we actually changed what this cell was, we would be allowed to do some different stuff. I'm kind of not looking too much in the chat. Are you, Joe?
Yeah, I'm monitoring it. There's a lot of stuff about web scraping going on right now. But yeah, just keep. I think I haven't seen any other than someone mentioned that you can access things like dot cells paren 3,1 in paren. There are, man, if you study VBA, there's like 8 million different ways to access a different range depending on how you want to do it. If you want to do it by columns or by rows or offset, which is I love that functionality as well.
Yeah.
And what I do, actually, let's that's a good segue. Let's demonstrate the formatting of text, but let's do it. Go ahead, and I guess since you're typing it, finish that one up. But let's demonstrate how you can use Excel to generate VBA code that is very easy to adapt to AutoHotkey syntax.
Yeah, for sure. Here I just mentioned offset, and then from the range A3, which is here, I've now used the command offset to go 0 rows down and 5 columns over. So 1 through 3, 4, and 5, and put in the value there.
Yeah, that one, when I'm searching through columns for something, and basically I have structured data where there's data in one column, I'm looking for it, and then when I find it, I want to move over 3 columns, or I'm over and I want to go down 3 rows. It's a great, easy way because you already know exactly where you are, right? And it's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. What we could do now was, as you were getting to, I'm sure, was that if we, let's say we wanted to color in one of these here, as we have up here in our little cheat sheet, instead of just coloring it in or trying to figure out what the commands were, I could easily enough, is it in data or is it in view? I can't remember. It's in view. I could record a VBA macro to do it. This is if I wanted to absolutely do it in either one or the other way. But here, I'll keep it at this simple naming scheme. So if I now went into this cell and let's say I put the background to be blue, like so. I would now have recorded a VBA macro that did that. And if I go and look at it, I can do that here. I could edit it. And here
yeah,
I
got it. Hold on. It's on the other screen. Bear with me.
Yeah. So here we actually have the needed VBA code, or at least the code that is automatically generated by the recorder. And it's taking the selection and interacting with the interior of that selection. And then it's setting the pattern and the other different types of parameters that needs to be set, or can be set, one might say. And on this one, it's using a solid pattern. What, Joe, are you saying something?
Yeah, well, I wanted you to hit on that right now that you're on the solid pattern. Explain what in the world you would do with that Excel solid.
Yeah, exactly. I would then do a couple of different things, because this is a constant that Excel already knows, whereas an AutoHotkey script wouldn't actually know the value of this. So what we could do, and what I have done a lot, was to actually go into is it View and Object Browser, F2 here, and I could look up this exact thing. What you can also do is you can, let's say, right-click it and get the Object Browser there. And I know that you can get some quick info about it, where you actually get the value presented right there for you. So now you could actually know that Excel Solid has a value of 1. So if you wanted to use that in AutoHotkey, you would need to pass 1 to the pattern. Not Excel Solid, but 1.
Right.
That's the value that's...
And just to, which I think everyone would know, but it would be :=1, right? So that's the minor tweak you would do for AutoHotkey.
Yeah, you're right. If we take this and do something equally, did that work correctly? I'm not sure. Like so, if we wanted to take that over into set A here and do this, and actually do it with the selection, we would first need to point to the selection. And if I don't remember wrongly, I think that's all that's needed. The selection is a direct child of the Excel object. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that it is. And then with the interior, one thing I could do, I could simply store that in a variable that's called interior. And then I could put that in here before. Okay, I got a space there. Let me just remove that.
So for those who don't do object-oriented stuff, right, what Jackie's doing there, it's a fundamental thing of once you realize he had a pointer overall to the Outlook Excel object, and then he stored a pointer to a, I think of it as like a tree, right? You kind of went down a branch to the interior, and he stored that in the variable called interior. And then now he doesn't have to type out that full length every time, right? He can just abbreviate and say interior pattern color index, interior tint shade, right? It's just a way to simplify, what's that right way, a place in memory? Is that what it's doing? Is it basically where you have that object?
Yeah, COM is a model that actually tells you how to store different types of things in memory. That's at least one of the explanations that I've got. So it's kind of a scheme that lets you always look the right place in memory for specific stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's actually what we're doing here, right? We're storing the pointer to the interior object in our variable that now knows where in memory that exact piece of code is located, and then we can act on it as many times as we want. So if I now went over to here and did the same for Excel Automatic, I would then get minus 4,105, and I could do the same thing here and say minus 4,105.
The values always crack me up that you get from the stuff in there, the constant.
Yeah, absolutely. It does. I can't tell you why they're made that way, but it probably makes a lot of sense for someone who's more knowledgeable about things like that. And that was a 5, right? Was it a minus 5 or was it just a 5? Did you see that?
It was a 5.
5. And the other two are just zeros. So this here now is AutoHotkey code that we could use on, let's close this one down. Let's now remove this coloring here. Maybe I can just do this, yeah. So now, by running this AutoHotkey script up here, we should now color in this cell's background. And we're getting an error because I probably did something wrong somewhere.
Oh, you have a space.
Yeah, I have a space there. So, like so. Let's see. Now it should work better.
There you go.
It's even one off. So, because I had selected something else, it's of course acting on
right.
that.
Yeah.
Whereas if I wanted to, let's say, color in a specific cell instead, I can't actually. Okay, interesting. So of course I can't. But if I, instead of using the selection, actually wanted to use a range, I could do that.
Right.
And use, let's say, A3.
And actually put in a range, more than one cell. Put in quote A3 to A whatever, just to demonstrate. It works the same way as you would inside Excel when you're referencing range.
Yeah, we can do it like that. So this way, and as you can see there, it would color in the entire range. So yeah, that's kind of. Let's
demonstrate one more time. Can you get back to the VBA macro version screen?
Yeah.
Because the other one I'd love, because another great, so one is often you can find on the forum what you're trying to do, right? Someone else has already done it, you just tweak it. But sometimes you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's where I wanted you to demonstrate of, like, let's say you didn't know what the actual options were, but get to, that showing the, and I forget what it's called, but the dot, you start typing and it's assisting you. And I wish AutoHotkey had it all built into it, because it would be a lifesaver. I mean, it does for AutoHotkey.
Yeah, but what you're getting at is that in SADE we actually have it, but not in the same way that
right.
you have here in VBA. But in, let's say in SADE or in AutoHotkey Studio, you actually still have it. So I'm not sure if this actually gives us that much.
Well, I just wanted to do a demonstration though of notice what it would when it starts popping down and the options to show up. Right. I think you misspelled selection there, so it's not going to work.
I actually did, yeah.
Yeah. Because maybe if you move it inside the subloop, is that what's going on?
Yeah, probably is.
Yeah, people always say, oh, I just do it in VBA. It's so much easier, and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, if you're used to doing
I'm sure it is.
Yeah. And if you're used to doing it in VBA, it probably is.
That's right, yeah.
So, but this would then just be the same, right? So if we then did this and put that there, and I did something with the interior, I don't actually see it acting.
Yeah. I don't use it frequently enough to know exactly what's going on. I just know it's incredibly handy.
It is. But for us, it's not really helping us right now.
Yeah,
that might be me controlling it from somewhere else or whatever. I'm not sure.
Yeah, let me. That box at the top with the things dropping into it, is that I kind of vaguely remember. Is that the see that button next to the question mark, 2 over from the question mark?
No, I'm not sure where.
Right, I got it right here. Right here. There we go. So this is where when you're on the right thing, it'll start showing you a lot of the options, and it's great because you can see all the options, right? Instead of just using what you've seen in an example from the forum or from Stack Overflow or wherever you get it, right?
Yeah.
You can get to that point and then say, wow, look at all these different things that that are built into it that I can do. So that was all I'm trying to get to.
Absolutely. But that's kind of the object browser is kind of what we have with our documentation. So that is the same thing that we would need to do there, right?
And F2 opens the object browser in Excel, says Bill.
Yeah, I know, and you can also find it in where was I?
Yeah, it's okay.
I'm kind of not finding it right now, but that's because you don't have.
I have the new version of Excel, which sorry, I'm not going to swear. I am unhappy with. They changed things around again and changed the names of things, and I've had it.
Yeah, but just a moment ago, don't like that. I actually clicked it fourth, I think.
Over down to the right, down a little further. I have a button, shortcut button to the right. Go to the right on the toolbar. No, on the Excel toolbar.
Mm-hmm.
Here, I got it. Right here. So this will bring up that menu. Is that what you're?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where you have it here in view. You also have it there, but of course we're all for hotkeys, so why not mention that? It's great. But yeah, this is what I used a lot of the time before, and it can tell you what's available to a great degree.
You know, I didn't. I'm gonna, before I send out the link. I remember because I happened to notice it. I forget what I was researching on, but I noticed you had a reference to it. You wrote a program or tweaked one that in AutoHotkey you can tell it the object that you're looking for, and it'll go and get you at least a high-level structure of the things that are available. That's on the forum somewhere. I remember I was looking at it the other day. I forget what the initial post was on, but I borrowed from it.
Yeah. I'm unsure of what I called it at the time, but I remember what you're talking about. But I felt that it was great, and I've seen others do stuff that resemble it. And I used one method, and I think there is, since I did that, there's some more advanced methods of doing the same thing that has emerged. So, and I'm happy to see that it actually keeps whatever you call it growing, getting more advanced. And I think that that's one of the things that we sometimes miss, is that we are kind of inventing the what do I call it?
Wheel?
The sorcerer or the wheel. Well,
yeah. Let's why don't you demonstrate now, like how easy it is to insert a row or a column?
Yeah, let's remove this here.
So the other thing, which I at least want to, before you, or while you do that, why don't you start typing? I will keep talking. Is depending on the method you're going to call, right? You have to think about what object you're connecting to. So if you're going to toggle across the work tabs down below, you have to be, if our memory serves, you need to be in a different at a different object than the application level. And I think for saving files, it's at a different one. The vast majority of stuff, it works without a problem. But man, there are a couple you go to do it and it doesn't respond, and it's because you're not connected to the right object.
Yeah, absolutely right. I'm just demonstrating here how you can use
that was awesome.
the recorder to do what you just said, right? You were talking, but you're welcome to keep going, and I'll just keep showing here. But here you now have the needed stuff to do an insert, and some of this is sometimes more involved than it needs to be.
Like that is mildly overstated, right? Sometimes the macro recorder will throw in a ton of crap that you just don't need.
Yeah, but if we are to use what we just got from the recorder, we would go in, put in the place that we actually wanted to insert. Let's say I'm just putting in, again, a simple range as H3. It doesn't need to be more involved than actually having just specified a point,
right,
like this. I'm losing keystrokes, and that's why I'm going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And here you could now set how you wanted it to shift, but some of these things are already done or have a default
right
way of doing stuff, but the macro recorder is still setting it. It's not using the default per se, but it is actually using the default.
You know, I'm really glad that you did this, because I understand what you're saying. I just never realized that there were defaults, and I wouldn't have known that without doing it the way you're doing it, of like, oh, you know what? Because that means now if I want to insert but I want to do something a little different, now I realize I have some choices, which I didn't know before. Yeah.
So now let's just close this here. If, let's say I put in somewhere in here, I put in another text. This is just so that we can see the insertion. So if I now run this and say there, you can see it actually inserted another cell here at that range point, and it moved all of the rest down. And again, with all of the options that we just saw, some of them in over here. What's the shortcut in America for the VBA editor? Is that F? I
think it's Alt F12. I'm going
Alt F12. Interesting.
Yeah.
I used what I normally use, and that kind of.
That's also why I made that button.
Yeah, of course.
You're on a chart, is how you got. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you find the closing?
We'll just go to the other. You're fighting me.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I was say it, but you I think you just got on a different worksheet.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's great. So here, from here, or where we wanted to do it.
Oh, Alt F11. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's Alt F11. But anyway.
Great.
Yeah.
But yeah, now we would put it over here, and where did our? I felt like we actually had some recordings there, but I couldn't just find them. Let's say we take the 5, the one we just did, the one down here. So I think I kind of lost where I was at right now. I kind of showed this, right? We showed that here. What's the next set?
I think we demonstrated that at least in shading. I think inserting a formula is also a really nice functionality of instead of inserting text.
Yeah, but you could do insert a formula. I can't remember. Can you remember if value actually lets you insert a formula?
Oh yeah,
I think it does.
Oh yeah, it does. I mean, don't ask me to pull it off of my brain, but I can find it in the heart, pretty quickly with my other scripts. But actually, if you look at let me drive for a second here on my computer.
Yeah.
So here is where I have a bunch of stuff for Excel. I'm thinking maybe filter for.
Because you also have the specific method of actually inserting a formula, but most of the time you probably don't need to use that. You can use value.
This is where I play for everyone else, but yeah, I have in my, let's see, I probably had opened it recently. I would share this, but honestly, when I first wrote it, I didn't know what in the world I was doing. So I'm slowly working my way back through it.
Yeah.
And so when I get done, I'll share it. But
yeah. You need to go further. But I think that you're still just using the value to set formulas of types.
Yeah, I know. And there's comment, insert hyperlink.
Yeah, the method I was thinking about is the one that's called Formula R1. I can't actually remember what it's called, but we could probably find it in the VBA object browser.
Mm-hmm.
And
why don't you go ahead? I'll use my other computer. You go ahead and see if you can figure it out, and I'll see if I can find, because I know I've used it on a specific script that I can on my other computer.
Mm-hmm.
But it is it's very nice to be able to. So here, before I start looking, so I will write a report that gets my data, and it starts looking at the data, and it makes references to the other cell, but instead of calculating the actual value and putting a constant, I insert formulas, and that way, if something changes in my original file, everything gets updated, right?
Yeah.
So that's why for me, I love being able to insert formulas.
Mm-hmm. But as you have it here as an example, formula R1C1 for ranges,
mm-hmm.
or for a range. So that would be what we could use as an example. I don't use that many formulas when actually programming from AutoHotkey. More thing that I do when I'm actually building Excel sheets. Most of the time, I take care of whatever needs to be calculated in the AutoHotkey script, but we can still show. Now you actually switched around there, but if we wanted to put in a formula here, R1C1, and then here we could put in the formula that we wanted to have. Right now, I can't really remember a formula. Can you?
Like a somewhat. Oh, that's what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, but it actually needed to sum something. But
yeah, well, just put in a range, right?
Yeah, but I don't have any numbers in here. So.
Yeah, but just anyway, you can write it and then go back and update the numbers.
You're of course right.
Whatever. Yeah.
We can say that we want it to be, let's say, A2 to A. Yeah, it could also be to, let's say, E2, like so.
So I just found mine, and it's similar to yours, except for I don't have the R1C1.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just formula.
Yeah, that's also usable. It depends on what your need is.
And I'm using the actual, because isn't it when it's the R1C1 that it has the references a little bit differently as far as the column and row?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And I can never think that way. It confuses me. So so I do it this way. But I think programmatically, when you get used to the other way, it's better, right? It's easier, but my brain, I don't use it enough, so I just do it this way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's also, you need to do it the way that you feel works easiest for you, however you can think of it the easiest. Again, that's most of what I'm saying that you need to do when you're using AutoHotkey. It needs to be something that helps you, and I'm sure that's why, as an example, that the syntax and the typing of the variables and stuff like that keeps being discussed to need to be more strict, but always ends up not becoming so, just because people are kind of happy that that they can do it however they feel.
Yeah. So if you look at the chat, just as an example, not that it's going to work in this one, but can you copy what I put in the chat and put it up there? It's just an idea, help to demonstrate how, depending if you have, a lot of different references you're doing, and you're trying to interject the the columns,
Hmm.
how you can do it. So on this, I was calculating, I think it was the click-through rate for my email metrics.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the chat. That's why I didn't reply, Joe.
Okay.
There's someone else trying to help out with.
Yeah, that screen updating one. That's I love it, but and you just it's the thing I do very last, right? I develop my code, get everything going, making it work, and then you turn off screen updating, do all your computations, and then turn it back on, and voila. Although it takes away the magic, right? Because you don't see it happening, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah. But I've seen, I think it's Bill, he's called, hitting a lot on simply just doing everything in Excel and then just using AutoHotkey on top of that and run macros from it. And I think that he's most likely used to sharing Excel files with macros enabled, which might be useful, but to some it's not.
Right.
I think that you had some point on that earlier, didn't you?
Right. Yeah, I've run into issues with that security-wise, and just people understanding is the difference between a VBA-enabled program and not. And yeah, there's a lot of complexity to it. But let's plug along here. Let's go ahead and skip the iterating over worksheets.
Mm-hmm.
That again, which it just you need to connect to a different. I'm trying to remember, but I can't remember. Actually, it's in this. Let me hit here and say worksheet, because you need to connect to a different one in order to rename worksheets and to access stuff. But anyway,
Yeah, but you had one just a little above where you are now, where you actually have, let's say here you have application workbooks, but you also have application worksheets, and you have
right
types of ways to actually work on different parts of either the same workbook or different workbooks and different sheets and stuff like that. So yeah, it's great.
Cool. Well, since we're out of time, let me real quickly. I'm gonna and a lot of you guys know we'll stay on here and talk more after. I am gonna quickly though demonstrate this. I'll leave that open because maybe we'll go back to it. And here's, by the way, here are some other resources that are great. I have a bunch of videos. Jackie has a really good intro video talking through stuff. There's a couple other good tutorials on the forum about using Excel and some great stuff there. This quick video, I have a script that when I click a button, I can hold down, I think it's Alt, and click the button, and it throws the program I'm in across to the other monitor. And because we're of course doing a webinar, you wouldn't be able to see it. So I'm going to try this, and I had cut this to the actual spot in the video. But here you can, let me turn down the audio here. So this is actually two different monitors. And so I would basically click here, and it throws that program to the other monitor. So I can just click it, it minimizes it, throws it to the other side, and maximizes it. So when you have, most people nowadays have at least two monitors, if not more, and that is the quick, easy way to be able to throw something to the other monitor. And I will. That link is going to be here. And just to FYI, so if those of you happen to show up here and aren't subscribed yet, if you want to know about further webinars, there'll be a link here. Of course, now that I think about this, you're not going to have the link in, obviously, because you won't get the deck because we don't have your email address. So I am going to put that in this chat. Hey, everyone. Oh, and something is acting up weird with my chat. But I will put that here in just a second. Did anybody have any questions real quick before we turn it over to the melee where everybody, it's a free-for-all and starts talking? You can just raise your hand or chat. I don't know why my...
It's hard to say, but It seems that something within the chat has a little delay, but
Yeah, for some reason my I can't paste in the chat right now.
maybe because I have some of the control.
Oh,
if you take the control back, you might
Yeah.
be able to do a little more.
But I'm not a control freak, really.
No.
Where?
If I relinquish control,
Yeah,
I give
once you
up
do that.
remote control, then maybe you have that more.
It's very odd.
Try and paste it somewhere else and see if it actually
Yeah,
works.
good idea. Yep.
Yeah, it's there.
Actually, so we can it's not that long, right? Let's
No.
So I can type.
So you can actually type.
Yeah, and what was really odd was I can even right click and say paste. But whatever.
Yeah.
So if you want to sign up for getting, being alerted ahead of time, that's the only thing we're doing really with that list.
Yeah.
But if anybody has, I guess that's, holy, we didn't record it. All right, we're going to start over. Everyone pay attention. We're going to start over. I'm kidding. But I forgot to record it. Bummer.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah.
Nothing we can really do about that now.
We can, Jackie, we can go through it some other time, maybe without the Q&A. But anyway, does anybody have any questions? I'm going to go ahead and unmute all.
Yeah, and maybe start a recording of Q&A.
Good point. So everyone, you are. It does default. I'm going to hit mute all, but then allow you guys to unmute yourself. So now you're muted again, but this time you can unmute yourself. Record to the cloud.
Hey, how's it going? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I typed in a question in the chat window about running an AHK program which has a menu in the tray. And what the program does is it monitors for file changes and then synchronizes the file to a local directory on the end user computer. So the problem that I have with the program, it works great, but once it starts the loop where it actually checks the files and it starts copying a file, when you try to open the right-click menu on the tray, the menu won't display until it's in the middle of a copy process or it finishes the cycle. So I'm just looking for some ideas maybe to get around that.
Oh, Jackie, you're muted. I'm going to unmute yourself there if you can.
Yeah, like so. Yeah, that's better. Interesting. But yeah, have you seen Hotkey? It's watch directory or watch folder. It's a script somewhere on the old forum.
No, I may have to take a look at that. What I have done is it doesn't watch. It only checks every 20 minutes or whatever time frequency I set for it. And
yeah,
it
but
modified date.
Yeah,
or save date.
With Hotkey, he is using a built-in method. He's connecting to it, and then using one of Windows' own functions to keep track of file changes and file creations and stuff like that, file modification. And you can simply set a flag for whatever you want to check within a specific folder. And then you can build a script around that. And it's not looping over it. It's getting the calls or the information directly from Windows.
That sounds like a nice improvement. So that's called folder watch?
Yeah, something like that, or watch folder.
I think it's watch folder, if I remember right. I've used it. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'll look it up. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Absolutely. So when you unmuted everybody, I think people were talking over each other, but now people ain't really that chatty.
Yeah, so they need to unmute themselves. I saw, I think it was Joe online, said he actually had recorded